Welcome back inside the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9. And Heath, we actually have a guest who is returning to the Stingray Show who is a WWE Hall of Famer. This guy was amazing the first time that we had him on. And Heath, what are you most looking forward to in this interview?
I hope he's going to announce he's going to run for Congress or Senate. We need this guy up there in Washington to kind of clean house a little bit. No,
Yes.
our next guest has been phenomenal. We had a complete blast when he was on the first time.
Oh,
Thoroughly
yeah.
enjoyed it. And too bad we couldn't go to the fundraiser in Memphis. It got canceled, but I was looking forward to meeting our next guest person face to
Yes.
face. But I'm so thrilled to have him back on the show. And hey, Steven, he's going to talk what he loves talking about, some college football.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, first off, he did play football at, I believe, Abilene Christian, but he is known for the longest reigning WWE champion in SmackDown TV history. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only John Bradshaw Layfield, aka JBL. John, how are things this evening, sir?
I am terrific. It's great to see you guys again. And my dad, I've told you before, was the biggest Paul Bear Bryant fan in the world. So me being on Tide 100, my dad passed away a couple of years ago. I don't know how the afterlife works, but I think he's looking down smiling right now saying, you're talking about Roll Tide.
Yes, sir. Well, I've got to first off, before we get into your a little bit of your wrestling career, I would like to ask you, because you are obviously from the state of Texas, what do you ultimately think Texas needs to do in order to be an elite program again?
They've got all the money in the world. I think Sarkisian, what a great story. Had a little problem with
Right.
addiction issues. He kind of got that straightened out. I think he's a wonderful story. I think he's probably the right coach. Don't know for sure. Texas has all the money in the world. They're like Alabama and Clemson.
Mhm.
They got so much money. They have a team, though, that is not designed to be in the SEC. They're not as physical up front as they have to be. They're not as fast up front as they have to be. They're going to be a rude awakening for them for the next 2 or 3 years. I think they'll get there, but they were going to have to retool their entire team as to the scoring offense that they had in their conference right now to a very physical game, especially up front, and that's going to take a while.
John, go back to your playing days in college. What were some of the biggest venues you got to play in?
Mhm.
I played against John Randall. Was probably the biggest thrill I had. John Randall was a Player of the Year in Division II. Back then, it was Division II before FCS. He played
Right.
at the Texas A&I Kingsville. He set all these sack records, all Division II that will never be broken. 10-time All-Pro with the Minnesota Vikings.
Right.
And I switched to left tackle just to play John, and unfortunately broke my leg in the second quarter against him. So never really got the full matchup. For a quarter and a half, we kind of went head-to-head for a while. But that was probably my biggest thrill. Got to play against Pierce Holt. Got to play a short time with the LA Raiders. Then I got to play in the World League. And Jason Garrett was our quarterback who ended up being the Cowboys coach. And
Right.
a bunch of guys that I still keep in touch with. Mike Riley, who ended up coaching at Nebraska and
Right.
San Diego. Unfortunately, got Ryan Leaf in the draft, who didn't quite pan out. That really hurt him. Mike was a great man to play for.
You were talking about Jason Garrett there. Ivy League graduate. Could you pick up on him being an Ivy League graduate? If you didn't know him and we're talking to him, would you immediately pick up like, oh, this guy's an Ivy Leaguer?
You pick up he's very smart. He and his brother both played with San Antonio. His other brother, Jackson, and I can't remember all their names. They all started with a J. His other brother played for, I think, the London Monarchs in the World League and was, I think, one of the Player of the Years in the World League. You knew Jason was a very smart guy. In fact, I saw him one time. I was flying from either Pensacola or I can't remember where, maybe Jacksonville to Dallas. And it's the first time I'd seen him in years. I saw him at a New York Giants golfing tournament when he was there as a backup quarterback. He has, I think, 3 Super Bowl rings as a backup quarterback, so he did quite well. And I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Dallas, looking to be a coach. And his dad had been a scout for the Dallas Cowboys. I thought he was going to be a scout. I said, well, which position? He said, well, head coach. And I'd lost track of him. I've been wrestling 250 days a year. I had no idea. And then sure enough, about a month later, they announced he was the head coach. And I think the world of Jason. I think Jason was a wonderful coordinator. I think he had some issues as head coach, and I think a lot of that had to do with him taking himself out of play calling as the offensive coordinator that he did so well at.
Yes. Well, JBL, real quick, I would like to transition into what you are doing now, being a broadcaster in the WWE. Now, obviously, we're not a controversial show, so we're not going to talk about the whole Vince McMahon situation. However, since Vince has left, the WWE has changed a big thing, and that is going back to the TV 14 rating. What is your thoughts about the change of going from PG back to where it was during the Attitude Era?
You got to be really good and really smart to be a TV 14, PG 14, whatever the classification is.
Right.
You know, John Cena came along after the Attitude Era, and he had the hardest role as a guy who carried the company. You know, it was so easy in Attitude Era. You could flip people off. You could drink beer. You could talk about their candy asses. You couldn't do that when Cena came along. It was a PG-14 product.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to toe a complete different line, and some of the fans didn't quite understand the transition. And Cena, the only person in the world I know that could have done that was John Cena. So these guys are going to have to be really good. When you don't have the ability to take shortcuts and curse or say something, a little crass, you got to be really smart in what you do. And I think they'll be okay. I really like Hunter. I like Triple H. I've always called him Hunter. Vince McMahon was like a father to me. Still is. I like Vince a lot. I think they're going to do quite well. It's going to be different, but sometimes different's good.
To follow up with the whole John Cena thing, and we won't chase this rabbit long, but I've always heard rumors and fun stuff that it would have been so much easier for him to be a bad guy and change things, but it just wasn't possible. You know more of his life than we ever will, but what was that poor man going through, John Cena going through with having that pressure and all the Make-A-Wishes, almost daily and everything else? I think if I heard that correctly, he's done more Make-A-Wishes than anybody now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by far. I think he's like at 650 or some incredible number that. He gave $1 million to social equality just a few years ago. John is just a wonderful human being, and he got the business right away. And when he'd come out, half the arena be chanting, "Let's go Cena," half the arena be chanting, "Cena sucks." But everybody was chanting something, and he understood that. The easy thing would be to turn heel. The long-term thing would be to stay exactly what he did. He was selling some insane number, like 40% of the merchandise at one point. And at the point I checked, it was, I don't know where it's fluctuated throughout his career, but it was him. I mean, he was the one selling tickets. He was the one selling merchandise. He knew what was best for his long-term. The Rock was the same way. You remember in Toronto when he's against Hulk Hogan, the easiest thing for The Rock to have done would be to turn heel for the local crowd. When the whole crowd turned on Rock and cheered Hogan, he knew it was a global audience, and he didn't do it. That really takes a smart guy who has a grasp of where his audience reach is, and John Cena is much the same way. I think that's one of the reasons those two guys have had so much success everywhere else.
Well, I want to talk about your career real quick. Obviously, with the JBL thing and the Texas Tycoon, you obviously came out in the big limo. But there's been a lot of, there was graffiti on it. They've, a couple of times it has been destroyed. So really, how many limos did you go through during your wrestling career?
It wasn't just limos. It was hats and suits, too.
Yes.
So I always had a nice suit I would wear, and I had a gimmick stunt suit that I would keep at TV in case I had to do something where things were going to end up all over me, which they did quite often. So I would always change that suit, and I'd bring another. Once it got ruined, I'd bring another cheaper suit to replace the one. And hopefully people didn't realize that I was wearing something that cost about $47 out there on set. But same with the hat. I can't tell you how many times Eddie Guerrero screwed up my hat or somebody else put something in my hat. I mean, it was almost weekly that something happened to me, my suit, my hat, or my limousine.
Gotcha.
You think you'd have better security than that at these WWE events. I was constantly vandalized, me personally and my stuff.
If you had to guess, how much money the company spent in merchandise or for your wardrobe, I should say, in just hats alone? If you had to put a price on it, what would
Wow.
you guess?
I would have, that'd be hard to say because you'd have to just go through the hats. How much were they each? Probably about $100 each. And how many did they destroy? Maybe 20, probably 20 suits that were probably $400 or $500, something like that. I think you could find the number, somewhat. The limousines, I don't know how we were destroyed probably 4 or 5 limousines in different ways. I think Stone Cold probably destroyed a lot more stuff than guy got destroyed as being the villain. He was destroying cars and rings and everything else. He was having a lot more fun. Of course, he was the one doing the destroying. I was the one getting destroyed.
Did you ever get to destroy anything?
I don't think I ever did. I don't think I ever got to be on the other side of that butt whooping that came when somebody got to make fun of somebody and somebody ended up embarrassed. It was usually just me getting embarrassed.
All right. And my last wrestling question for you is this. We obviously did not touch on it when you were here the last time, but I did want to ask you this. At WrestleMania 25, you ultimately, after losing to Rey Mysterio, grabbed the mic and said, "I quit." What ultimately led to that decision of you quitting the WWE?
My back. I'd hurt my back a few years earlier. I actually broke it in a match and had to retire. And I probably should have never came back. Now, I'm glad I did come back because I got to do a storyline with Chris Jericho and with Shawn Michaels, two guys I really admire. And then at the end with Rey Mysterio, I had so many people help me over the course of my career. Leon White, Big Van Vader, told me, he said, "I've asked for you in my last pay-per-view match." And he said, "You're going to get the old Vader. I'm going to come out smoking." And he said, "You're going to kick out of my finish and you're going to beat me." And he said, "When you beat somebody, you're going to beat somebody at this pay-per-view." And I just always thought that was so cool. So when it came my time to retire, I'm not just going to ride off in the sunset, certainly not a hero. I wanted to find somebody that I could give whatever equity that JBL had and give as much of it to them as I could. And that was the love and respect I had for Rey Mysterio. Because I love Ray and because I respect Ray as a person, human being, everything. He's a wonderful guy. But also my love and respect for Eddie Guerrero and that association with Eddie.
Yes.
Wow. Well, my wrestling question is this. What city or cities did y'all thoroughly enjoy going to, whether it just be the food or the atmosphere or the fans or whatever it was? But what are some of the cities that you really enjoyed performing in?
Surprisingly, New York was not one of them. The Garden was maybe the greatest
Right.
arena in the world, as everybody says, but it's so hard to get in and out of the Garden. It's so hard to stay there. We stayed usually in Jersey, so it wasn't a pleasant experience getting in and out. St. Louis had this wonderful bar in Cahoots out by the airport. It's a cowboy bar, and we used to go there it was so much fun to go there. They had like one of those mechanical riding bulls that we would try to stand up on and surf, and we had so much fun. Bob Orton Jr., Randy's dad, my first tag team partner in Japan, would always come out. It's just a matter of some of the towns, the things around where we got to stay. Where we got to stay was there a good gym, good restaurant, and things like that. Kansas City was always cool because Harley Race would have us out for a barbecue and a few beers. And Dallas was always cool because I'd always get to see some old friends from the Sportatorium. The Staples Center is just nothing like it because you always have these, especially when Rock and Stone Cold were hot. They had all these A-list celebrities that would come out to the Staples Center.
Wow.
Some pretty cool places that I got to go. Budokan is awesome in Tokyo. One of the greatest arenas. Again, hard to get to. Corkin in Tokyo, Earl's Court in London. We got to wrestle in the big Melbourne arena. I mean, it's been fun to be able to go to these arenas that when you're a small kid from Sweetwater, Texas, you read about or hear about great arenas around the world, and then you get to go and see them.
Well, on that note, we got to take a very short break, and when we come back, we are going to actually pick games, and JBL is actually going to stay and give us his thoughts on the game as well. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9.
Hello, Tuscaloosa. Welcome back to ESPN Radio, Tide 100.9 here on the Stingray Show. Tonight, we got a very special guest, WWE Hall of Famer JBL is joining us. We're getting ready to pick some games. JBL, this will be my last wrestling question of the night. Who is the funniest guy backstage? Who's just one guy that you thoroughly enjoy hanging out with that keeps everybody in stitches?
It's one of two guys, and their last name is both Armstrong. So it's either Brad or Brian, Road Dogg. Those two guys were absolutely hilarious. I mean, we had some real entertainers. Brian Lee was a funny guy. There were some real entertainers. Before the internet and social media, when guys would, be on their phones all the time, we didn't have phones at all. Right. We had to entertain ourselves. And so there was a real art to guys telling stories and making jokes. And we had a lot of really funny, creative people.
So the Armstrongs are storytellers, huh?
The Armstrongs are two of the funniest people I've ever been around. Dutch Mantell, by the way, that is the funniest human being I've ever been around and one of the best guys I've ever been around. We rode together miles after mile after mile in WWE, and Dutch would just tell me stories the whole time. I'd drive, and Dutch would just tell me stories. We had a lot of fun.
And I'm sure you probably can't share hardly any of those stories on air.
I'd start with none. Yeah, the over-under would be at none. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, are y'all ready to switch gears and talk a little college football?
Absolutely.
You better believe it. Heck yeah. I may not know what I'm talking about, but I love talking it.
Right. All right. Well, the first game is actually going to be tomorrow evening, which is Friday, and it is going to be Louisville 0-1 at Gus Malzahn and Central Florida. This game is at 6:30 on ESPN2, and Central Florida is a 6.5-point favorite. JBL, I'll let you do the honors. Who do you like in that matchup?
UCF. I don't know why they're not 12 or 13-point favorites. Everybody thinks that Louisville, after Lamar Jackson, is quarterback U, and Malik Cunningham is just not Lamar Jackson. He's a good quarterback, but the comparison is just not fair to Lamar Jackson. He was 16 of 22 last week, 152 yards with 2 interceptions. He's going against a really good coach, Gus Malzahn team. I think UCF covers. I think could cover pretty easy.
Wow. All right. Well, being outside the Memphis area, I'm never going to pick Louisville. That's just a heated rivalry. I'm sorry, never going to do it. But in all seriousness, Central Florida looked really good. John Reese Plumlee, the former Ole Miss quarterback, looked really good. Teaming up with the Gus Bus, I think those guys are going to have a fun season. I don't know how great Central Florida can be this year, but I know they're going to be a fun team to watch. I like Central Florida. I like them by at least double digits in this game. And I don't think it's going to be competitive when we get to the fourth quarter.
Yeah. The Football Power Index gives Central Florida a 79% chance to win. I'm with you guys. I'm rolling with the Gus Bus on that one. All right, next up, our next game is going to be Saturday, and it is going to be at 11 a.m. on ESPN. It is Spencer Rattler and South Carolina heading up to Fayetteville to take on a red-hot Arkansas team. Both teams are 1-0, and Arkansas is an 8.5-point favorite. Heath?
Well, Shane joined our show. Shane Beamer joined our show here last week. Beamer ball came into play last week.
Right.
But that's the thing. They scored, I think, 21 points on defense and special teams. You're not getting that every week.
No.
Arkansas, very physical team. Now, Arkansas did not look in sync. Dominique Johnson, the best running back on the team, didn't play last week. I think we might see him this week. They showed him in warm-ups, but we all seen that before, trying to get the other team to maybe make some key switches there right before game time. But with that being said, I think Arkansas makes this very ugly. I think that this will be a competitive game for a while. Yeah. But as long as South Carolina hangs around, yeah, there's a chance. But that's the thing. I think there's a lot of quit with the physical Arkansas team coming at them. I like Arkansas. I like Arkansas big. I like them by at least 2 touchdowns.
John?
Arkansas had a big win last week. They're playing at home. If they're playing on the road, it might be different. It might be a letdown spot. But South Carolina was outgained rushing 200 yards to 79 by Georgia State. Yeah. I just don't think they can go into Arkansas and compete. And I'm with Heath here. I think it's a double-digit victory for Arkansas.
Well, guys, when we had John Neighbors on the show, he talked about the woes of Arkansas at 11 a.m. kicks. I think they buck the system, and I think they actually get a win this weekend at the 11 a.m. kickoff up there in Fayetteville. I like Arkansas as well. Okay, now this one right here very well could be an upset in the making, just simply because Sam Hartman may not play for Wake Forest because of that undisclosed injury that he had to have surgery on before the season began. Wake Forest ranked 22nd, 1-0 at 2-0 Vandy. This is 11 a.m. on the SEC network, and Wake Forest is a 13-point favorite. Are we thinking the upset here?
Is that to me?
Yeah, John.
I think we are if Sam Hartman's not playing. Tuesday, they had the line come out. The line came out at 6, by the way, and
Yes.
it's up to 13. When news came out Tuesday that Sam Hartman is probably playing, the line goes from 10 to minus 13. So it looks like Sam Hartman is probably playing, and I think that spells a lot of trouble for Vandy. Vandy goes to Hawaii. They kill a team they play extremely well. They're traveling back east, which is much harder than traveling west. We'll talk about that in a minute with Iowa coming. Northwestern coming back from Dublin, Ireland.
Yes.
So it's understandable they had a bad second game, but I just don't think if Sam Hartman is playing that Wake Forest doesn't beat these guys significantly by 2 touchdowns or better.
You know, Stephen, how much I want to pull for Vandy and how
Yes.
much, I mean, let's be real. Vandy's going to Vandy at the end of the day. But let's give Vandy their props. Not many people saw them going 2-0. They're the only team in the country that's have scored 100 points on the season so far. Yeah, I know they've played 2 games. But, you got to ride that anchor all the way down. They're going to anchor it down in the loss column this week, and I like Wake.
I agree with you. I do like Wake, and the Football Power Index does like them by 62%, and so I'm going with Wake as well. Now, obviously, we're saving the Big 12 versus SEC Big Showdown for last here. However, there is another one in the SEC that nobody's talking about. The Missouri Tigers and Eli Drinkowitz go to Manhattan, Kansas to take on Kansas State. Both teams are 1-0 on the season. This is on ESPN2 at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and Kansas State is an 8-point favorite. Heath, does the SEC in this one beat the Big 12?
We keep hearing about Drinkowitz being this offensive genius, and he is. He's a phenomenal play caller, but sometimes I think being head coach just kind of overtakes a little bit of everything from the head coach, and especially play calling duties.
Yeah.
How much I like Drink. I think he's going to need Drink after this one. I'm going to go with K-State because I just do not have any faith in Missouri being physical enough and putting it together. They showed flashes against La Tech in that first game, but we saw flashes all last year out of Missouri, and we just never saw a finished product.
Yes. John?
You mentioned the flashes against La Tech. They gave up 11 yards rushing. That's almost impossible. I understand. They significantly overwhelm as far as talent. The problem is on the other side with K-State is Deuce Vaughn, who's preseason All-American, 7 straight 100-yard rushing games. K-State had 297 yards rushing, so something has got to give here between a team that shut down. Of course, Louisiana Tech, I understand that, and a team that runs the ball a lot. I think K-State is able to run the ball. I think Deuce Vaughn gets another 100-yard game, his 8th straight. I think he ends up making All-American like he's predicted, and I'll take K-State and give the points.
I'm actually going against y'all. I think Missouri pulls it out. I really do. I like Missouri in that matchup. All right, next up is going to be Duke at Northwestern. Both teams are 1-0 on the season. Northwestern is a 10-point favorite. It is an 11 a.m. kickoff on Fox Sports 1. I'm actually going with Northwestern on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to join you on Northwestern. I thought they had a great game against Nebraska. That game could have gone either way, and it probably would have affected the line if they had lost by a field goal as compared to win by a field goal. Duke played Temple, and they crushed them, but Temple is just not that good. I think this is a huge step up. Coming back from that game in Ireland where they beat Nebraska. They had 3 wins last year. They could have 2 after this game, and I think they probably will. This is going to be an incredible home atmosphere. I think Northwestern rolls them boys.
I'm a big fan of Patty Fitz there at Northwestern. I just really I have my questions with Northwestern, but I think they get it done. It's Duke. Duke's kind of in limbo a little bit of trying to get things together this season. They're still trying to put a system and culture in. A little overwhelming. Northwestern has already faced some adversity. So I kind of like that early in the season. And as you know, as the season develops, you get better. These guys got to jump on the season with an extra week of getting prepared. So I really like Northwestern against Duke. And you know what? I'm not going to be shocked if this game's ugly midway through the third quarter.
Yes. Well, guys, our next matchup is going to be 2:30 on ESPN2. It is going to be App State 0-1, who had a heartbreaking loss last week to North Carolina, at Texas A&M, who is number 8 in the country this week. They're 1-0. Texas A&M is an 18.5-point favorite. However, Texas A&M looked really sluggish at the start last week against Sam Houston State. Any chance App State upsets Texas A&M, Heath?
Yeah, I think there's a legit chance. Am I going to put money on it? Absolutely not. I'm not touching this one. Look, the thing with Jimbo and A&M is, they talk a big game, the media gets behind them, but they're not showing it. They're always inconsistent.
Right.
They talked about how they beat Alabama last year, and then they turn around, they lose to Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. They're just all over the place. A&M better come and not think that this game's already mailed in. App State will fight them, and will fight them to the bitter end. But A&M should out-athlete them. But if they rely solely on that, they're in trouble. They have to show up to play. I think if they bring their B game, they have nothing to worry about. They can bring their B- game. I think they're okay. But A&M, I like them. I think this game stays close for a little while, but I think a turnover turns this into a blowout. I like A&M big.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm with you on the Jimbo Fisher talk. I mean, they're talking about how they're going to compete in the SEC, and somewhere every season they end up not competing. They beat Alabama. They've turned the corner. They hadn't turned the corner. Then they lose three games that they should have won. App State, to me, I agree with you on the potential upset. I'm not going to bet on it either. Scored 40 points in the fourth quarter.
Yes,
that's absolutely insane. I mean, these guys don't quit. I think Texas A&M, though, is so much better. I think they end up covering the point spread, but you never know. As far as the scary part about the point spread is once A&M kind of pulls off the gas a little bit, App State is going to play until that final whistle. And they could always have a backdoor cover in this that would make me leery of giving 18 points to App State.
Have either one of you been to Boone, North Carolina, where App State is?
No. Never.
Fun place. Check it out one day if you ever get the chance.
They're a great program. They upset somebody every year. What a wonderful program. And they probably should have won that game against North Carolina.
Yeah, they should.
College kickers, my man. All right, next up, first off, let me just go ahead and say I'm rolling with the Aggies on that one, but I want to pick App State so bad, but I just can't do it. All right, next up is going to be 2:30 on ABC. It is going to be Tennessee, ranked 24th this week, versus Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh. This, like I said, in Tennessee is a 6.5-point favorite. I'm actually picking the Vols to get redemption after last year's game in Knoxville. I think Tennessee returns the favor this year and beats Pitt at Pitt.
Yeah, what an incredible game last week, the backyard brawl. Whoever took the Texas and Texas A&M from us Texas fans, I want to find out so I can beat that guy up, because you find out how great in-state rivalries are. Not in-state, but rivalries are. You have Pitt and West Virginia. I mean, that's what makes college football so great. The backyard brawl was back. Could have gone either way. It's a very physical game, by the way. Tennessee outscored their opponents last year in the first quarter by 14.7 points. That's 3 points more than the second team outscored their opponent in the first quarter. Last week, I bet Tennessee on the first quarter, they gave it up 9.5 points. They had 17. They're playing a team that they rolled on. They scored in the first half a minute. When you see how fast Tennessee moves the ball, I'll take a bet here, but I'm going to take a bet however I can get it, either -0.5 or -1.5 first quarter on Tennessee.
Wow.
All right. Well, from week 1 to week 2, you usually see the biggest improvement. in college football teams. And I think that's going to be the case here. I was not overly impressed with Tennessee in their opener. They were sloppy here and there. But going back to last year's game, a lot of people forgot Hayden Hooker hardly played in that game. He did not start. He was not the starting quarterback at the time. And very late in the game, they brought him in. He almost led the comeback in this game. Hayden Hooker is clearly the man in Knoxville. He's the man at Rocky Top. I like Tennessee. I like Tennessee in a very big way. It shocks me to think that how they played last week, kind of being sloppy here and there, especially in that first half of Hayden Hooker. But I really think Hayden Hooker is going to come out on fire, focused. I think you're going to see a huge development from week 1 to week 2. I think you're going to see that offense clicking. I don't have much faith in that Tennessee defense, but I do think they're aggressive. And I don't think this one's even going to be close. I really like Tennessee in a very big way. I think they win by more than 2 touchdowns.
Hey, greatest theme song in all of sports, Rocky Top. It's just the best. We were wrestling in Knoxville one time, and I'm staying at the Marriott right there on the river, and some wedding started playing Rocky Top when they got drunk, and they played it like 40 times in a row. I'm not exaggerating. They played it like for 2 straight hours, and by the end of it, I was starting to dislike my favorite college songs.
I was about to say, if you're in the SEC and you go to one game at Neyland, you will easily hate that song.
All right, our next game is going to be 2:30 on Fox. It is Washington State out of the Pac-12 heading up to Wisconsin, who is ranked 19th this week. Wisconsin is a 17-point favorite. Obviously, we saw Utah lose at Florida. We saw Oregon lose versus Georgia. Can Washington State keep it close with Wisconsin, John?
I don't think so. They both played FCS teams in the first game. Washington State, the difference was down 10 points. They get down 10 points to Wisconsin. They're likely not to get the ball back for a while, much less be able to come back from that. I just think Wisconsin has too much firepower. They're going to control the football. They're going to control the line of scrimmage, just like they did when Jonathan Taylor was there. It's the new offensive line group. Like Nebraska used to be so revered for. Now people are looking at Wisconsin in the same respect form. I think Wisconsin wins pretty easy.
Heath?
I'm a big fan of Wazoo. I've always liked Wazoo. They're the little brother out there in the pack. Out there on I can't remember if they call it the Palouse or the Palouse, that part of the region there in the state. But this is not going to be close, Stephen. It's not going to be respectable. The pack doesn't have good football, and we've already seen that. We've seen blowouts, and it's not close. It's not good. It's not consistent, and I think that's what this game is going to be too. I think Wazoo gets embarrassed. And I think this one might be the ugliest game we see all of Saturday.
I agree with that. I'm going Wisconsin as well. All right, next up is going to be 3 p.m. on FS1. It is a squeaky good game in the state of Texas. It is 25th ranked Houston, 1-0 at Texas Tech, 1-0 as well. And Texas Tech is a 3-point favorite. I'm actually going with the upset here. I think Texas Tech beats the ranked Houston this weekend.
Interesting. So Texas Tech is a 3-point favorite, right? So Houston's getting 3. Yeah, it makes sense. In Lubbock, Lubbock's a hard place to play. The fans come out. It's West Texas football. It's Friday Night Lights, out there. Just like you guys in Alabama know all about. Football is everything. I think the difference in this game, though, these teams are almost identical. The difference was Tyler Slew or Shoe, whatever his name, the quarterback transfer that came to Texas Tech. He's not going to play, it looks like, because of injury. I think that makes the difference. So I'm going to go with the other side. I'm going to go with the visiting team, Houston. This is going to be a great game. It should be a close game. But I think, my opinion, the quarterback makes the difference.
It's funny. We went from Washington State, where Mike Leach coached, to Texas Tech, where Leach coached as well. But man, Reclam Tech, I love Tech. I love the Red Raiders. But Houston trying to prove themselves. They're coming into the Big 12. They're trying to prove themselves. This is a game they circled on their calendar. They are excited about this game. I don't know if you can say that about Texas Tech. New coach, new system. There's a lot of new things going. I think this game is going to be a fun game. This is the hard thing about it. I think this comes down to whoever has the ball last or whoever makes the least mistakes. And I really, really like Houston, but you know what? I'm going with the Red Raiders. And for all of you listening in the car and all throughout Tuscaloosa, there is a wonderful clip of Jerry Clower, the great storyteller and comedian from Mississippi, tells a wonderful story about Texas Tech and the head official calling a game with Texas Tech, Mississippi State. If you've never heard it, go to YouTube. Well, look up, search Jerry Clower, Texas Tech football. It's an absolutely hilarious story.
Yes. Well, guys, next up is going to be, now this one is actually going to be a paint drying game for Heath, but I'm actually going to shock you guys. It is going to be 3 p.m. It is going to be UNLV, the running Rebels, at the California Bears. Both teams are 1-0. I was extremely impressed with UNLV in week 0. I think UNLV goes into Berkeley and upsets the Power 5 team, Cal.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, this is a game. If you end up watching it, I'm sorry that you ended up watching it because this is not a very of all the games on. This is not a very exciting game. UNLV. I don't have a notes in front. I think they won 2 games in the last 2 years. They were 0-6 in COVID. They won 2 games last year. But Doug Brumfield last week, the quarterback. Now they weren't playing a team that was up to par of California. 21 of 25, 336 yards. I think UNLV could surprise some people this year, and I think Cal's probably going to be one of them. So I'm going to go with you on this with the UNLV running Rebels.
You know, Stephen, we've had a special guest on our show who is president of I don't even know what Ray's title is, president of the UNLV,
Alumni Club.
Yeah, whatever it is. Ray's great. He's fun. He's great to follow on Instagram. Funny guy, very entertaining guy. And we played punter for the Titans for a short, for a cup of coffee in the NFL. But, I keep my eye out for UNLV, and I keep my eye out just because of Ray. I'll say this. That is a growing program. They are headed in the right direction. Now, they came from absolutely flaming hot garbage. I mean, it's just hot trash. That's what it was. But UNLV is working their way up. Yes. I can't say anything nice about Cal. I mean, it's the greatest public university in America. Okay, great. You're terrible at football. I'm going UNLV.
Yep. All right. Now, this game last week, Iowa was extremely hard to watch because they only scored 1 touchdown the entire game. However, it has not been on the good side for Iowa State here recently. Iowa State is at Iowa. As bad as Iowa looked last week, I've got to go with the Hawkeyes beating the Cyclones for yet another year because Iowa State has now lost to Iowa in 8 straight years.
Wow.
So you're going Iowa over Iowa State, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Did you see the run line for the box score for the game with Iowa? It was 3 in the first quarter, 3 in the second quarter, 2 in the third, 2 in the fourth. 3-3-2-2 was the run line. So the Iowa won by getting a field goal and 2 safeties. There was 280 yards of offense in that game, 160 by Iowa, 120 by their opponent. That is – they got Iowa's got a great defense. They have wonderful special teams, but their offense is probably bottom 10, 20% in the entire country out of 130-something teams. They're just not very good. I think if Iowa State can score once or twice, the over-under I think is 41 on this. I think I would lean the under on it. I think Iowa State can walk out of Iowa with a huge upset because I just don't think Iowa can score. I'm not sure Iowa State can either. This might be another 3-3-2-2 game, but I think Iowa State has a real chance here.
Heath, before you pick.
All right.
Iowa is a 3.5-point favorite. That should tell you something.
3 and a hook. Wow. That hook always gets everybody. Stay away from the hooks, right?
Yes.
That hook just is begging you to take it.
It is, isn't it?
Which is scary when the books want you to take a certain side.
I'm big on not letting people put handcuffs on your dreams, your goals, your career. That people not putting you in a box like, oh, well, you were here to do that. No, I'm not one of those people. Same way with streaks, Stephen. I believe in streaks. I know streaks exist for a reason, but all streaks have to come to an end. I like Iowa State. I think it's going to be a huge night. And I think the Cyclones put this game away somewhere late in the third quarter, and it's a whole big party in the fourth quarter all through the night. And if I'm not mistaken, this game always happens during the state fair. So there might be some brawls going on up in Iowa at the state fair with your fried corn and your fried Twinkies and whatever funnel cakes and everything else.
All right. Well, the next game is going to be our old friend Brett Bielema from Arkansas. He is now up at Illinois. And honestly, guys, Illinois should have beaten Indiana last Friday night. Now, Illinois hosts Virginia. This game is at 3 p.m. on ESPNU. And Illinois is a 4.5 point favorite. I'm rolling with Brett Bielema and Illinois getting to 2-1 on the season.
Yeah, I think this to me is a really toss-up pick, and the point spread is pretty good where it is right now. Illinois, you're right, should have beat Indiana last week. The thing with Virginia, though, Brandon Armstrong, terrific quarterback, and he's got 3 or 4 receivers that could go pro in the next couple years. Got a great receiving core. And Illinois, if they have a weakness on defense, it's their secondary. They give up a bunch of points. I'm going to take the points and take the other side and take Virginia.
Wow. All right, JBL. I love physical football. I love defense more than I love offense. I love line play. I think the game is won and lost on the O-line and D-line every game that there is.
Yeah.
Brett Bielema's teams are always extra physical. I don't care if you're playing them and they're 0-11, his team's going to come out and punch you in the mouth. Which always reminds me of my favorite Mike Tyson quote, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. But with that being said, I like Bielema. I like the physical part of the game of Illinois. You know, Virginia has always been a team that's always kind of, I don't want to say finesse football, but they haven't really been known as a physical team in many decades. So with that being said, I really like Bielema to come out. Now, Bielema's not going to outsmart them on offense. We know this, and we saw it in the SEC. But I do think the physicality of the Illinois team will just overwhelm Virginia as that game wears on. I like Illinois, but not by much.
Well, let's go to the 6 p.m. slate of games, and we actually have a big one in the SEC East. It is going to be 6 p.m. on ESPN. It is number 20 Kentucky without Chris Rodriguez or their 2 other running backs going down to a red-hot Florida team off of a huge win against Utah. I'm actually going Florida beating Kentucky just because Chris Rodriguez will not be available for this game.
I'm with you, and for the exact same reason. Chris Rodriguez is a difference maker. 1,000-something yards last year. I mean, this kid can run the football, and without him, I just don't think they have the firepower to beat Florida. Florida, by the way, Utah led at 4 different times during the game. Something's going on in Gainesville. I would not want to go in Florida right now as a ranked team or anybody else and try to come away with a win, especially early in the season, because these guys they're drinking some different water down there right now. They believe in themselves. I think Florida wins this game.
John, you probably don't know this. In the SEC, the fans are a little crazy. I'm sure you do know that part of it. When Peyton Manning was quarterbacking at Tennessee, the most popular name for boys and girls in the state of Tennessee was Peyton when he was playing. Eli Manning, quarterback here at Ole Miss in the state of Mississippi. And, you know, the name Elijah and Eli was very popular in the state of Mississippi, number 1 boy's name. Cavassier Smoke. I'm still waiting on the numbers for the running back at Kentucky. I don't know how many kids are being named Cavassier or Smoke, but I'm still waiting on those numbers to come in. But with that being said,
it's the greatest name ever.
I know, isn't it?
Yes, greatest name ever. You know, with Kansas becoming legal in all these states, all he's got to do is like go play for the Denver Broncos, and he'll end up with like endorsements everywhere.
Right.
Well, you know, with all this NIL money, I'm waiting for the dispensaries to line up for Cavassier smoke. I mean, that's like, I'm waiting to watch that commercial. But with that being said, I don't like Kentucky in this game. You know, Kentucky had a long losing streak. I do like the MO, the momentum of Florida. I don't think anyone gave them a chance to beat Utah. They did. This game is always a struggle for Kentucky. I really like this game. I think this will be a knockdown drag. I think this might be the best game on Saturday. I'm not going to be shocked if it's a one-possession game. But if it is, Billy Napier is a super strong X and O's coach. He has made a huge name for himself in the high school ranks and even in the college ranks here in these parts. He turned down almost every SEC job. You know, we counted him up the other night, Stephen. What was it, like 7, 8 SEC jobs he turned down?
Yes.
But he accepted this Florida job when he left La Tech. There's something crazy going on at Florida. I don't know how long this is going to last in Gainesville and at the Swamp, but I do like Florida to win this game, and I think this might be the best game that we'll see on Saturday.
All right, next up is going to be 6:30 ABC. It is going to be a matchup out in the Pac-12. It is going to be number 10 USC 1-0 on the road taking on the Cardinals of Stanford. And I'm just going to go ahead and honestly say this, guys, for David Shaw, he desperately needs this win, but I don't think he gets it because I just don't believe Stanford is physical enough yet to be able to beat the Trojans. I'm actually going with USC winning this game, but sneaky little thing here, USC is only a 9-point favorite.
Look, as a Texan who rooted against Oklahoma in every single game they ever played, in fact, if they played a team that was coached by Vladimir Putin, I think I would have to root for Vladimir Putin against the Oklahoma people up there. We have this wonderful rivalry with Oklahoma that we love to see them lose against anybody. Lincoln Riley caused us a lot of pain. A lot of pain. That guy is a football coach. I think Lincoln Riley at USC with Caleb Williams, I think right now they're riding this new coach coming in. Everybody's buying in this program. I think they're too much for Stanford. I think they win, and I think they win pretty easy.
John, you'll enjoy this story. My old college roommate, his father, played football at Oklahoma, and he used to always talk about the Red River rivalry. And he'd always talked about how at the Texas State Fair, coach would always tell him, you cannot wear any of your Oklahoma stuff out. Don't ever wear your stuff against the Texas guys would wear their stuff out. There would always be fights everywhere with those guys. He said, but it wasn't until my junior year that I learned that Texas was the Longhorns, because I always thought they were the Unicorns, because how our fans used to address them with their hand signal. So, you know, it wasn't that. It was
that's right.
Well, yeah, I think you can figure that one out. But
see, I tell my friend Gerald Briscoe, who's one of my best friends I do a little wrestling podcast with, that Trump was right about the wall. He's wrong about the location. We need it between us and Oklahoma, not between us and Mexico. We need it between to keep those Okies out of the promised land.
Fair enough. No, I'm with you. I think Raleigh is a great coach. I think that this line is kind of a sucker bet. I think this game gets ugly, Stephen.
Yeah.
You know, and Stephen, I haven't said this whenever we predict games. I always get to say it. If Stanford doesn't win the toss, I don't think they're going to win anything all day. I like USC. I like USC big.
All right, now this one could be a pretty good matchup. It is going to be Herm Edwards and Arizona State 1-0 at Stillwater to take on the Cowboys of number 11 Oklahoma State. 6:30 on ESPN2. Oklahoma State is only an 11-point favorite in this game, but I'm riding with Gundy and the Pokes. I like the Cowboys to win over Herm Edwards.
I love Herb Edwards. What a great coach. What a great personality. Well, it seems like a great person. I never got the privilege of meeting him. But Oklahoma State, their defensive coordinator goes to Ohio State. Last week, you saw how great he was. Notre Dame in the second half, no points, 72 yards. That was the difference in the game. And the difference in Oklahoma State this year is the fact that he is at Ohio State. They can score half 100, I believe, on almost any team in the country. but they can give up half 100 against almost any team in the country. They gave up 44 points last week. People didn't really notice that because they were ahead so much of the game from the very start. They were ahead 2 touchdowns. It seemed like the entire game. But you saw Central Michigan come back. I think this game could be closer, but I still think that Oklahoma State does enough offensively, not defensively, to cover this spread.
Steven, who is the most popular Oklahoma State grad ever? And you're a huge fan of them.
Gerald Briscoe. I hope he sees this. God, that nicest thing I've ever said. Actually, I hope he doesn't see it.
Boone Pickens?
No, man, Garth Brooks.
That's right.
Hey, is Garth going to be at the game? If he
Not
is,
sure.
it's a shoe-in. No, I'm joking. No, I really like Oklahoma State. I've always liked Oklahoma State. I like Gundy. He is the guy can scheme. He can scheme against any defense and score. But JBL, you said it best. He doesn't know how to scheme with his defense. He spends all of his money and all his time concentrating on offense, I guess. But with that being said, I really like Gundy in this one. I think that he schemes a little bit more, and I think this game gets out of hand. And I'm not going to be shocked if it's out of hand by the first or second possession after halftime.
All right, next up is going to be at 9:15 on ESPN, and this is actually my upset pick of the week. It is going to be number 9 Baylor, 1-0 at Provo, Utah, to take on the BYU Cougars, who jump into the top 25 at number 21 this year, and BYU is a 3.5-point favorite. I'm going with BYU at home, upsetting number 9 Baylor.
You know, something's wrong here. Either the ratings are wrong or the spread's wrong, because these don't go together. You know, I know Vegas doesn't look at the number of the rankings, but the rankings should look at Vegas, because so many times you see somebody like this who's ranked above somebody, and they're the underdog in a case. Or to me, it's Baylor is finally reaching their heyday again. This is going to be a very physical game. Playing at altitude obviously hurts. I don't know if they're getting in Thursday or Friday. Time change isn't going to affect them that much. But I like the Baylor Bears. Baylor Bears have finished the season incredibly strong. This is going to be a very physical game. This is going to be a great game. And I think, and I hope, because I'm a Baylor fan, that Baylor comes away with the win.
You know, I mean, let's break it down like this. It's the Mormons versus the Baptist, right? I mean, which one's bigger?
The Stormin' Mormons, I heard them called.
I like the Baptists in this one, you know. All right, you got to watch it. Hey, I'm a Baptist. I can say it. You got to watch us. You know, you got to watch us. That reminds me of a joke, Stephen. Why do you never take one Baptist fishing with you?
No clue.
They'll drink all your beer. If you take 2, they won't drink in front of each other. So there you go. So with that being said,
what do you get when you have 4 Baptists? A 5th?
So with that,
I grew up in a very, very, religious society, so there was all kind of religious jokes going back and forth. So.
Right.
We appreciate making fun of our Baptist friends at Baylor.
Yes.
Ooh. Oh, take my breath away. All right, here we go. No, I do like Baylor. I think they're on an upswing. I think they're trying to build an elite program there in Waco. And I know this game's on the road. Stephen, have you ever been to Provo, Utah?
I would love to go. No, but I would love to.
Man, it's a weird place. It's a very nice place. It's cleaner than Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
It's very odd. When I was on television, went out there for a Thursday night game with ESPN, and it just blew my mind that there were these – this is back in the late 90s, but there was these running clubs, and there would be like 150 people all running together, and they were all wearing the same thing. And so, like, there's like a rule at BYU that you cannot be in your dorm from like 1:45 to 4 or something. Like, you have to be outside doing it. And I was like, what is going on with this place? Immaculate clean, very nice people. No one shows up to that game until like 4 minutes before kickoff. I was like, I guess no one's coming to the game tonight. Right. And then like 3.5 minutes, like everyone runs to their seat. I'm like, what in the world is this? But very odd atmosphere, weird atmosphere. People are wonderful, beautiful part of the country. But with all that being said, we're getting back to football. I like the more physical team. I like the more talented team. I like the Bears to sick them hard, and I think this game is over before halftime.
Wow.
All right, we have 2 games left. The first one is going to be Heath's alma mater and the school that I'm actually going to for meteorology right now. It is going to be 1-0 Mississippi State with Mike Leach going back to the Pac 12 to take on 1-0 Arizona. And Arizona is coming off of a huge win against San Diego State last weekend. Mississippi State is an 11-point favorite. Oh, and one more little nugget. Mike Leach is 4-2 on the road, or I should say against Arizona. However, the last time he did play at Arizona with Washington State, it was a loss. Heath, your alma mater, can they beat Arizona in a late kick here in the Central Time Zone?
Well, I don't think the desert's going to affect them because the game is kicking off at 10 o'clock at night,
Yes.
Mississippi time. That travel is going to play with them a little bit. They're traveling. You're kicking the game off at 10 o'clock. But, hey, Mississippi State this past week basically kicked off their game at 9:45 at night against Memphis because they had one possession. They had that crazy weather delay.
Yeah.
And so they started the game back up at 9:45 at night and played in a driving rainstorm. And they look great. They look very crisp, which is a shocker after a 2.5-hour weather delay. And there was something brought up. I thought it was great. And I cannot remember the media member that brought it up. Forgive me. But they said, they were talking about the Mississippi State defense in the second half, how they kind of teetered off. They said, well, one, it was close to midnight. And two, they've had their pads on for over 7 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I didn't think about that. And it's just that you lose focus. You lose intensity after 7 hours in your pad, especially when you had to sit around for 2 hours and 45 minutes doing absolutely nothing. So with that being said, I don't think the time effect is really going to affect. Mike Leach used to practice at midnight, still does during the offseason. You had this game last week. Leach is an odd bird. He does things differently, like practicing at midnight. So with that being said, I don't think the time's going to affect. I don't think the weather's going to affect. But I was really shocked at how physical Mississippi State was and how crisp they were on offense. 450 yards for Will Rogers. And, last week he had 12 different receivers through 5 touchdown passes. I mean, he was on point. That offense is clicking. If Arizona does not find a way to disrupt the air raid, I don't think this one's going to be close at all, Stephen. I don't see a huge blowout, but I do see Mississippi State winning by this game by at least 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember when Mike Leach came into Texas Tech, man, he was so innovative and so different. People in West Texas just love the guy. And he won games. He made Texas Tech, who was irrelevant at the time, relevant in football. And they still are to this day. And a lot of it was what he built. Love Mike Leach as a football coach. And he is odd. I think that's being very nice, calling him odd. What a great interview. I mean, you have no idea what that man is going to say. It's like interviewing Roddy Piper back in the day. You have no idea what he's going to say, which makes the interview terrific. I agree with you on the physicality. I agree with you on trying to stop their offense. I think Mississippi State rolls in the desert.
I'm actually rolling with Mississippi State as well, and I think they cover the 11. All right, guys, it is time for the big matchup that is at 11 a.m. on Saturday in Austin, where College Game Day will be between Alabama and Texas. JBL, not only give us your pick, but please break down this game for us as you see it, my friend.
Oh, well, time out, Stephen. Time out. Before JBL does that, JBL, I have a favor to ask. Break this game down in your character, JBL, and have a little fun with it. Whatever side you choose or whatever your prediction is, have fun with this and do it in your JBL character so we can get a laugh.
The Texas Longhorns are going to come in a romping and a stomping, a whooping and a whomping, whooping every man and child within an inch of their life. They going to beat them boys. They going to have it called 911. Someone called the police. Somebody stole their soul. Texas is going to roll them boys.
Wow.
That's
Very
all.
nice. Very nice.
None of that's going to happen, but that sounds good.
Even better.
Hey, Texas, I think Texas is going to get there. I think Sarkisian's a great coach, and I think they're getting a lot of players. I just don't think they can match up the physicality. I'm hoping the 11 a.m. game as a Texas fan, have been a Texas fan since Earl Campbell and Darrell Royal, that it wears on Nebraska. Wears on Alabama. But I think the only chance that Texas has is if Alabama misses the bus. I don't think it's going to matter when that bus gets there. Like Texas, I think is going to score some points. They got Bijan Robinson in the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
Ewers seems to be a good quarterback. Don't really know. He started off a bit slow. I think they're going to make some big plays. The problem is they have two true freshman offensive linemen. And when you got Will Anderson on the other side, that is a real problem. You got to keep an eye on him. I don't know if I think it's not fair to say he's a Lawrence Taylor type persona player, but a guy is up for the Heisman Trophy as a defensive player, and that tells you that kid is special. You got to figure out where he is at all times. I think Texas probably makes some big plays. I think they may even cover the 20 points. Depends on when Alabama pulls their foot off the gas. It's going to be one of the greatest atmospheres in Texas in years. But Alabama's used to playing in that. They're used to being the visiting team when everybody in the country gets up for Alabama. It's like the New Zealand all-black rugby team. They know the first 10 minutes, weather the storm, just weather the storm, because they're going to come out with their very best at you, and Alabama's used to that. But I think the discipline, Saban, and forget the fact that he always beats his assistant coaches, or for the most part, beats his assistant coaches. I think the discipline and the depth of Alabama ends up wearing Texas down, and Texas ends up losing. I hope they cover the spread and make it a decent game. I think there's a chance they will.
I should make a horse's butt out of me and Steven. I should make Steven do a Macho Man impersonation and me do Dusty Rhodes, but we still couldn't top you, JBL. But with that being said,
Dusty was a huge Texas fan. So Dusty and Dick Murdoch, Skandar Akbar were huge Texas fans, and they would call Jim Ross and Bill Watts whenever Texas would beat Oklahoma, and just, hey, you see the score of the game? And of course, they'd cuss at them and hang up.
Oh, that's great. I would love to hear any of that. That's fun. But that's why we love college football. It's for things like that as well.
Absolutely. We've had so much fun with the Red River Show. So much fun. That's why I hate that Texas doesn't play A&M anymore. That was such a great rivalry. These rivalries in college football. I lived in Bermuda for about 9 years, and people always gave me a hard time because America doesn't have anything like country versus country, like France versus England in soccer. We do. We have the Iron Bowl. We have Georgia versus Bama. We have Texas versus Oklahoma. We have Michigan versus Michigan State. We have Ohio State versus Notre Dame, Ohio State versus Michigan. We have that. It's our states and not our countries, but it's just as big and just as passionate.
Yes.
Absolutely it is. Steven, this game, I've been saying it all summer. I've said it last week on the show. I said it earlier this week on the show. I'll say it again. I think this is one of the greatest Nick Saban teams ever. I really was impressed in week one. I knew that defense was going to be dominant. Will Anderson, I think, is the absolute greatest player in college football. I think he is better than the Heisman Trophy winner on the other side of the ball. This Bama team is special. They can do it on offense. They can easily do it with defense. I think, hey, I said it earlier. I'll say it again. Texas doesn't win the coin toss. They're not going to win anything all day. I really like Alabama. And, Steven, I think it's ugly early. And I think Nick Saban makes a point. I think Nick Saban gives I take this one part back. I think Saban does what he did to Ole Miss last year, kind of does the same thing with Texas. I think he jumps out all over them. But since he's friends with Sark, like he is Lane Kiffin, he eases up on them and doesn't embarrass them. I think the same thing's going to happen. I think Saban's going to come out there, jump all over Texas, and instead of embarrass them and run it up 55, whatever, to nothing, close to nothing, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he calls off the dogs. I think he puts in third string, some walk-ons, whoever he feels like and is happy with. And they score some points there late. But Bama big, and Bama with these. I never keep up with Bama and the spread, but I don't even know what the spread is in this game. But
it started around 17. It's up around 20 and a half right now, and it seems to be going up, not down.
Wow. There you go.
If it got to 21, I think there might be some value on it for Texas. And I think because of what you said, he loves Sark. Sark has done so many kind interviews about how Saban, saved his coaching career and what a great man he is. I think Saban might pull his foot off the gas a little bit, just like he does with some of the other guys that they like. So Saban is a real class act. Something a lot of people that don't follow Alabama closely don't give him credit for, but he really is.
Yeah, Johnny, here's a fun question. You talked about earlier in the show and on the show before how your dad was a big fan of Bear Bryant. Who are you a big fan of?
Coaching-wise?
Yeah.
I always like the old coaches. I like Parcells when he coached. I like the old school guys. I love guys who work hard at the game, guys like Saban, guys like Belichick. They really just work hard at the game. I like Phil Jackson because he could put all these different personalities together, which people say, oh, it's easy to coach a dream team. Yeah, really? No one else is doing it. I like these old school throwback coaches. I like Jimmy Johnson. I didn't like him when he came in because of the way that Tom Landry left, and I love Tom Landry. You can't be from Texas and not like Tom Landry. He was such a class act and always carried himself with such pride and dignity. At one time it was him, Hallis, and Lombardi coaching at the Giants together before they all.
I did not know that.
Yeah, on the same team, kind of like the old Cleveland coaching staff. That had all the great coaches on it that never did do much and end up splitting up.
Wow, that is impressive. Very impressive.
I like coaches that coach with an old school. Just let's just play football. And coaches that have a lot of respect for the game and a lot of respect for their players, which a lot of the tough coaches don't get credit for that, but they do. That's why. Yeah. That's why you judge a coach not by necessarily the wins, but by what kind of people 20 years and 30 years down the road that the people he coached became. And I think that tells you a lot about these different coaches. And you see that in some really great men and some great coaches.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm actually going with Texas in the upset. No, I'm kidding. I'm going with Roll Tide in Alabama all the way. Well, look, JBL, we really do want to thank you for joining us this evening to discuss all things college football and a little bit of wrestling. So before we get out of here, is there anything that you would like to give a shout out to, please, sir?
No, look, I love college football. I love what football has done for me. I love what football has done for so many people. I do a little podcast with Gerald Briscoe. It's on YouTube, Stories of Briscoe and Bradshaw. We interview old legends, and they tell their stories, and we have a lot of fun. There's no dirt. There's no grudge or anything that are carried out. We just have a lot of fun, and that's what I enjoy doing right now. I have a charity work in Memphis that I work with. Memphis Inner City Rugby does incredible work, and there's some young guys there, Shane Young and Devin O'Brien, who are not such young guys anymore. They were when they started. That do a wonderful job with some of the worst child poverty. And Memphis Inner City Rugby is the name of it. I say that not because of me, but because I want people to see that program and see what can be done in these inner cities.
Well, JBL, I live right outside Memphis. I'm about 8 miles from the border of Memphis. I'm here in Northwest Mississippi. And, if there's any city that really needs financial literacy, it's definitely the city of Memphis. And I think that's a wonderful thing that those guys are doing. And hats off and major kudos of tackling something so hard and being on the forefront of it.
Yeah, and it can be done. They have 100%, not only graduation rate, but 100% of the young people, men and women, boys and girls, are going somewhere after high school, either college, military, or trade school. They follow them into early adulthood. So it can be done. People that say that you can't fix education, you can't fix our inner cities, that's not right. We can't. Yeah. There's just not the will to do it, and that's what we need. These are our people just like anybody else in the country. They're our citizens. They're Americans just like us, and they're people just like us, which is much more important than being just Americans like us.
And that's why you're going to run for Senate or Congress one day.
Well, look,
I don't know if I can become what I dislike. And that's a politician.
Well, look, man, we really do want to thank you once again, and hopefully we can do it again towards the end of the season, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Always great talking to you. You guys have a great week. Enjoy the games this weekend.
Yes, sir. You too, bud. Thank you. Well, Heath, that is going to wrap up the Stingray show there with JBL. We hope that you guys have thoroughly enjoyed it, and that was a blast, my friend.
I just thought of this, Steven. I should have ordered me an APA shirt
Yes.
and ditched the button down and put on an APA shirt with my jacket here, try to class it up a little bit.
Yes.
I have one of those little handwritten signs behind me.
Well, Well, on that note, we got to sign off here on the Stingray Show. We hope you guys have thoroughly enjoyed our breakdown of the games and, of course, the coaches speak earlier in the show. We hope that you guys have a wonderful football weekend. Now, because Alabama does play at noon or I should say 11 a.m. on Saturday, there will be no Stingray Show this Saturday because of Alabama football. So go out there and enjoy your college football, everybody. And we are out. We will see you guys next week, right here only on the Stingray Show on Tuesday evening for a breakdown of all the games in week number 2.